Okay, welcome everybody. Thank you to all of you who are here. My name is Nathan Hansen. I am the Public Relations Coordinator for Golden Shovel Agency. We are happy to have Eric and Ashley Canada here with us from Blane Canada AI. In the 1990s, Eric Canada brought industrial marketing to economic development at a time when the field had no language for it. He developed a curriculum for the International Economic Development Council and took that to 28 cities over 3 years. He wrote the book that the program produced and was teaching what the field now calls B2B marketing before the terminology existed. After that, he spent 22 years building a competitive intelligence software company with a patented process that was used by more than 1,700 organizations to turn raw market information into decisions they could act on. As founder and chief strategy officer of Blane Canada, Eric works with organizations navigating AI as an organizational strategy question, not a technology purchase. Ashley Canada spent more than 20 years building and running business operations. She led a top 1% national sales team and managed $15 to $20 million in active construction projects across 45 client accounts. She was the number one ranked sales performer at her last company and tripled productivity by redesigning the processes and workflows that were costing the team results. She then turned that operational experience toward AI. With no prior coding background, she built 22 production AI systems for clients across the sales, operations, and client management in under a year. She placed ninth in a global coding competition of more than 160 experienced coders. We are happy to have both of them here for this webinar. If you have questions, feel free to ask them. We will either break in during the conversation to ask them if it's timely, or we will have some time to ask those questions at the end. But for now, I will turn it over to Eric and Ashley. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nathan. We are excited to be here. So we are going to talk high level BR&E meets AI and how to turn your most important program into your most powerful one. Obviously, this is going to be high level to try to apply to everybody, but we will also, towards the end, give you a few self-assessment kind of assignments, little baby steps that you can take to start to make progress where it relates to AI. So we're excited to be here with you guys. Nathan already did our introductions. I don't think we need another one. We'll just skip that one.
I'll just go on to add. In my case, I'm Eric. Obviously, the program that Nathan was talking about, some of you will recognize it as Synchronous and Synchronous Suite. So it looked at both business retention expansion as well in the retail sector as well as in the industrial sector. So it was a tool that was used broadly, and as a result of that and my prior work as a local economic developer, I have always engaged in business retention. I've always thought it was the most powerful and most important program that we can offer at the local community level. So delighted to see all of you here today, and we look forward to sharing a little bit about how we might rethink or look at business retention. Now, some of you have participated in Golden Shovel surveys, and the majority of you have said that BR&E is the most important or top priority for the coming year. Absolutely the correct way to answer that. It should be everybody's top priority as an economic development group, but you're in the room, you're talking to the executives in the community. We're going to talk to you about the possibility of how you deal with the subject of AI and how you can then bring that into your business retention program.
Okay, so more than half of your businesses are expecting AI to change their industry, and business leaders, owners, executives know that AI is big. It is incredibly important. They have no idea where to begin, where to start with it. And it's not an issue of technology because there's all the tools, right? But it's a matter of where do we start? And so that uncertainty is where you as economic developers and leaders have the opportunity to add value to give your businesses the roadmap forward. So what does AI and automation really mean?
We use a lot of confusing terminology, one of which is workflow. Workflow doesn't make any sense if you don't know what that means. So what you're looking at here on this particular slide is the workflow for business retention expansion. What it does is it breaks business retention into 4 stages. Stage 1 is the planning, stage 2 is engagement, stage 3 is analysis, stage 4 is action. Underneath each of those phases or stages are the individual activities that you go through. So in the planning process, you're thinking about which companies you're going to interview. You're thinking about contacts, researching those individuals who you're going to be interviewing. And obviously, you're preparing an interview tool, or you've selected one that meets your needs and you're testing it against the audience that you're going to be talking to. So we're going to break this workflow down and talk to you or help you see how AI interacts at every one of the stages. And that's exactly the process that a company would go through in the assessment process that we're going to talk about then later. And that's part of tying it back to that goal of helping you think about the assessment as the way to start the process. So we've broken down the workflow. Phase 1 is the planning phase. Obviously, you can use a large language model to do industry concentration research. So if you have a cluster industry in your community, you can do deep dive research on that using one of the LLM tools or Perplexity, and you can get really good information about what's happening in that industry, and that can help you understand the companies then that you're going to be talking to. You can also use the LLMs to do company-specific research or individual concentrations so that you can decide which one of the companies you want to prioritize. You can automate, the company and the individual contact research. There are tools to do that now in AI. Or you can use a large language model to design the survey instrument that you're going to use if you don't already have one. Let's say you're looking at 4 different models that have been provided by another community. You can put those together and have an LLM help you sort through that and keep it to a specific length. So many ways you can use the AI process here. So what we're doing in this exercise is we're taking the workflow, we've broken it down, and now we're thinking about how we can interact or add to that with automation and AI intelligence. Now, you'll notice the top 2 on this page. This is the engagement phase. So we're scheduling a meeting, we're confirming it, we're doing the interview, we're capturing data, and we're doing the executive follow-up. We could use voice AI to schedule and confirm the meetings. Would that be the right thing to do? Probably not at this stage. Maybe at some point in time that would be acceptable, but at this point in time, that's probably not an applicable or a reasonable use of the technology. Could we take an audio recorder like Fireflies or Otter into our meeting and have it transcribe it automatically while we're meeting? Again, that may not be the right way to use the tool. It may be threatening, or it may put the individual that we're interviewing on guard. So that's clearly not what we want them to do. We want them to feel free to share. So, just because you can do it doesn't mean you do it. It means we look at the options, we make decisions about what's possible, what's appropriate for the audience, what's appropriate for the business, and the situation at hand. We can, however, use an audio process as a way to do the data entry. Let's say we've taken notes during a meeting. Now we go back, or we're in our car and we hit record and we talk through what we learned, how they answered the individual questions on your survey. Now we can use that tape that you've just created and use that as an input tool using an LLM to populate your data. So there are different ways to do that. Obviously, you can write a thank you letter for the individual you just interviewed, capture a few notes on what the follow-up activities are, and so forth. So AI has a number of ways it can help you in this part of the process. Now, as we look at stage 3, we begin to see now we're in the briefings, we're in the data analysis, and we're in the reporting. This is where the LLMs are really rich in capabilities. They can obviously draft the emails, but they can highlight significant issues when they look across 20, 40, 100 different executive interviews. They can isolate the outliers that may be a significant issue. They can see the trends, the patterns much more easily and much more quickly than you or I can. I would have died to been able to build this kind of tool into Synchronous back in the day. The technology wasn't there, obviously. To code some of the things that we did to do reports was a very tedious and long process, and then they were tightly structured reports. With the LLMs, you can create all kinds of neat reports. You can have spur-of-the-moment reports, or you can have those structured reports for the quarterly meetings, the monthly meetings if you want them that frequently, and of course the annual report. So these tools now are really capable and strong in the data analysis and reporting side. So how you use them then is the question, which ones you use. Then when we move to stage 4, which is the final stage, now we can take the data that we've captured, and based on those results, we can begin to analyze, what course of action should my economic development organization take. You can use the LLM for brainstorming. You can use it to put together a program. You can tell it what you want in terms of the basic structure of a program. It says, help me think through building this program in a real world situation. Here's my community, and we want to be able to raise $50,000 to do this. It will help you do the whole planning process. So this is a workflow. This is how you take a workflow apart and you think about where the different applications of either AI or automation might be. The very same process applies to the companies in your community. They may be looking at different workflows. They may be looking at the marketing workflow. They may be looking at customer service. They may be looking at product improvement, any number of things. The same process is applicable that we just went through, and that's really the process that you go through as a result of or in conjunction with the assessment process.
So where we go from soloist to conductor, what we are seeing here is an opportunity for to elevate executives so that they can run the system instead of being the system. So this is applicable to you as business leaders, as well as those business leaders and owners in their community. So what we are seeing now is essentially an AI operating system where we build a contextual layer on who are you as, I'm going to use a business owner as an example. Who are you as the business owner? What are your goals, objectives, and everything about your business? And so now this AI operating system, instead of you being the person to manage your calendar and emails and messages and all of the pieces, you're stuck in your business. This now, the AI operating system allows us to build the contextual layer around you and your business, elevate you so that you can run the business instead of being stuck in the business. So this AIOS is a tool that can connect to you, all of your systems, run your calendar, your email, all of that. So that way the executive leads the system instead of being stuck in it. So the realities of AI in business.
So part of what we're interested in, of course, and you're interested in, is how AI affects your community, what your AI and automation opportunities are. There are 3 real components or areas where where a community can flourish in AI. Those communities that have the talent to build these tools, to imagine what ChatGPT can do next or what else it can do, that's a specialized talent set. That's a specialized talent pool. And it doesn't exist in rural communities or most communities in the United States. That's locked into a dozen communities around the country, perhaps. So you're never going to have the concentration of talent to be involved as a community at that level. The next level then is innovation. Once the tools are built and imagined by the talent, how can you use them? What are the different ways you can use them and create those new opportunities? Again, that's a very specialized skill set that is very developer driven, very software driven. The kind of people who were in software in the past are hugely valuable in this, but then these are also the business process people. So if you don't have a heavy concentration in those communities, you're pretty much locked out of this area as well. And that means in reality, as an economic developer, my only shot at making my community better with AI is to be a fast adopter. If I can accelerate the speed at which AI is adopted in my community by my companies, I'm going to have a better chance of those companies growing and expanding their market reach and keeping their headquarters in my community. So it's business retention as well as business growth, as well as community development, all wrapped up in one package, because that's the opportunity that we have and the only game we can play in. We can't really, as economic developers and as communities, be in the other two parts of the game. So the first step, obviously, is again with our BR&E tools, you have their trust, you meet with them. So part of this is using that trust, your experience with them, and talking to them about their usage of AI. What are they doing with it internally? How has that turned out for them? Get a scale of 1 to 5 so you can actually measure at the end of the day where different companies are on the scale. I like a larger scale, but 1 to 5 works. 1 to 7 works, which we used to use with Synchronist, or you can use a 1 to 10 scale. It really doesn't matter. What you're trying to do is get a distribution to understand where companies lie across the spectrum as opposed to a single point. Yes, we were successful. No, we weren't successful. And then, of course, the why questions that follow this. So there are probably half a dozen questions that you could build into your interview tool, which would give you a lot of rich data that then could be used to segment your audience into the leaders, the followers, and the people who just may never be ready for this, so that you can focus your resources where you can have the greatest amount of impact.
And if I could inject real quickly, you said, there's many questions that you can start asking your business leaders to gain understanding. If you don't know what the best questions may be, go to Claude or go to ChatGPT, give them an explanation of you, your community, your goals, and say, I'm looking to gather this data. What are the most important questions I can ask? It will give you that list of questions. So a staggering statistic, 88% of organizations are using AI, but only 6% are seeing meaningful results. And nearly everybody is using AI today, but they are using it and interacting with ChatGPT or Claude the same way that you would with Google. You ask a question, you get a response. It is a very, very generic output that you're getting. And so this is where organizations are getting stuck because they understand that we need to use AI, but they don't know how to actually use AI. So this is, goes back to the example. You can ask Chat or Claude, say, I need to gather data for my community on AI adoption. What is my community struggling with? What are the questions that I need to start asking? So use it as a brainstorming partner. Don't just ask a question like you would with Google. One example. So the outcomes because we are using it like we would use Google, we are getting really, as I said, generic outcomes. So when you're using AI tools without a strategy, you get inconsistent results. It has no idea what are your goals and objectives. So if you explain to the AI, here is my organization, our goals, our objectives, here's the challenges that we are running into, And then it has the context. It has more context on you and how it can help you so that you get a less generic example. Some organizations are seeing early wins in isolated areas, but then again, because we haven't fed the AI with context, you're getting really generic outputs and you can't scale that or replicate it. Another example is if organizations are going in and they buy an AI tool or a chatbot or a voice bot, whatever it is, they build a tool because we know we need to do something, but we don't know what we need to do. So we just, we buy a tool. But you're not necessarily going to get what you need because we haven't assessed your business, your goals, your objectives to ensure that's the right tool. So most AI initiatives right now are failing for one of three reasons, many more in addition to that. AI is layered on a broken process. So this is the case for every business out there. I don't care who you are and how efficient your systems and processes are. Every single business out there has either, maybe it's data silos, or maybe there's a workflow that has a kink in it because they created a workaround because they had to, and now this is the process. So when you layer AI on top of broken processes or messy data, it will only amplify the chaos. So the first thing that you need to do is look at your data, look at your processes, look at your workflows. That is where you need to address things first, and clean those things up. Then you can layer AI on top of it. So that speaks to the data gaps. If data is in silos, you need to ensure that the data is cleaned up first. You need to make sure that you have a roadmap first as well. Don't buy an AI tool or an AI build until you have done a full assessment and look at your organization, your workflows, your processes, your goals, objectives. Then you figure out where AI can be implemented. So the 6% who are seeing success, they have assessed all of those things before they are investing in a tool. They have an understanding of their organization high level, and then they can choose where AI is implemented, where it's going to give the biggest return on investment. Like I was saying, you have to fix the foundation first. You must get the kinks out of the workflows. You must get the data cleaned up. We have a client, she knew that she had a data problem, and we were in the middle of a build for her. We had to put the entire build on hold to clean up her data, and we helped her through the process. And literally just taking a step back, slowing down, and working through the data cleanup with her, the relief that she felt from just the data cleanup alone was tremendous. It was amazing. So you have to make sure that your foundation is solid before you start layering AI on top of it.
Okay. We've referred to in passing an AI assessment, so we want to talk a little bit about that because really that's an essential piece in our view of the world. That's how you figure out where you belong. So it's not a diagnostic. It is a diagnostic process. It's not a report. So you're going through a system, an organization, a department, or a function, and you're looking at the steps that it takes to accomplish that. Just like I did at the beginning in the BR&E breakdown. Those are the details that you need in order to figure out where AI can really be effective. That determines where your AI can be most successful. And from that comes a more clear picture of what you should do and probably what order you should do it in. So it's, again, not a specific report. It's looking through all this and then coming to some conclusions around the process. So here are three questions, and you can you can put these together. You can take a screenshot of this slide when we get the third one up and answer these questions at your leisure. If someone were to ask you today for key data right now, how long would it take you to put it together? That's the site selection part or drill that we go through every time. It's the end of the month board report or the end of the quarter board report, depending on your frequency. It's those kinds. Is the data there and organized and it's going to take you minutes, or is it going to take you hours, or is it going to take you days? If you're days, that is obviously a problem. Hours could go either way. Minutes is ideal. You're dealing with clean data and you're not struggling and stressing out about that data like the client that Ashley was talking about. The workflow or the process, then, the question is, can you draw your most important workflow on a whiteboard in under 5 minutes? And this is basically asking you, do you know where your problem really is? Or do you know how the process really works? And in the same client that Ashley was talking about, it turns out that she thought she needed A, but the reality was she doesn't use A, she uses something else. So if we were to deliver just what she wanted, it would have been a total miss. And you don't learn that until you dig into the business process. So her business process, and this is a fleet management, her business process was to give the drivers a week's worth of stops that they would make during the coming week and then allow them to plan their own day. So ultimately they get all the stops made, but we don't care as a company how you make those stops. Well, that's not necessarily the most efficient routing. The most efficient routing means we drive less, we fill the truck up as quickly as possible or empty it as quickly as possible, and we get everything done. So, how you look at these things can change as you dig into what that process is. So the question is, do you know the process that gives you the most problems? And can you put it on a whiteboard quickly? Most people can't. Then the final question, you could take a screenshot of this. Do you have one process everybody agrees is painful? Let's say it's that preparing for that board report. Everybody's going through their notes. They're going through their calendar. Who did I meet with this week? They're going through their data. What did people say when I was interviewing them on their BR&E visits? How many visits did I get done? They're pulling that kind of data together from various silos and trying to make sense out of it and then make it look like it looked last month, roughly. And hopefully not be too negative or too positive compared to prior months. So, do you know that process? Do you agree on what the most difficult process is for you? And then who owns it? Who's responsible for it? And is that person have the authority to fix it? If they don't, then you clearly have a problem. Maybe you know what the problem is, but Alice, who's responsible for it, can't make any decisions because somebody higher up has to make those decisions. So those are the kinds of problems that you run into, but understanding that is part of doing your own self-assessment.
So when you're doing a self-assessment, the way that we look at it for any organization is, and I've mentioned this a few times, we want to look at your operations, your systems, your processes, all of the tools that you are using, as well as team capabilities. The two that we look at that are not considered as frequently but are incredibly important is, what are the goals of the organization or the business? And what is the governance? What is the security that is required to protect your sensitive data? And how do we ensure that that is upheld? So with goals, the most common failure is we want to use AI for this, but we haven't assessed everything as a whole. So the client that we were talking about is she wanted a specific tool for a specific outcome. Once we actually dug into her data, her systems, her processes, we came to understand we need to address these things first, and then we can deliver on what it is that you are looking for. So with these next couple slides, we would love you to take screenshots of these, because there is a self-assessment question at the bottom that you can ask in terms of your organization or for organizations in your communities. But can you name one objective and describe AI's specific measurable role in it? This is another example where maybe you don't know what AI could do for you. So you tell the AI, here's my objective. How can you help me get there? So these next couple slides, if you take screenshots, these will give you little baby steps where you can take action and look at your own organization or organizations in your community. And going back to everybody is feeling analysis paralysis, we know this is important. We have no idea where to start. These self-assessment questions that are on the next few slides will give you little baby steps forward so that you can start making progress.
To add to that goal issue, sometimes we'll hear just my personal goals and not the company goals. And what you want is you need to know what the department's goals are. So if we're talking about business retention, we need to know what your goals are, but we also need to know your organizational goals, because to make sure these align, we have to know what the top star looks like. So on the operations side, that's just what I did for BR&E at the beginning of this session. We looked at the process, we broke it down into its parts, we looked at where there might be opportunities. Now, in order to understand and decide on those opportunities, you're going to have to apply judgment. And we'll talk about that in a few minutes. But BR&E tracking is a very high friction process. Keeping track of that, who you're visiting, the data, getting prepared for that interview. There's a lot of moving parts there, and they're complicated. They take time. In my world, it used to take 4 to 6 hours to prepare and conduct a single visit. That included the visit time, the drive time, the prep time, and, getting all your information together. So, again, we want to see what those friction points are. Now, different places in your organization, you may have multiple friction points. Fundraising is very different than business retention. Clearly, they're trying to retain those people who are giving them grants and gifts and investing in the organization, but they're also looking to build new investors. So that's a different process, a sales process. So each one of these operations is going to have a different set of issues, and you look at those individually, but you also keep in mind that North Star goal, or those North Star goals of the organization itself.
When you look at the team capabilities, technology is 20% of the successful AI implementation, but your people are 80%. And what we have run into is there are on every single team, there are the early adapters and there are the late adapters. And so it's really important to find the early adapter on any team and really empower them to go out and learn about AI. And it's really important to upskill the entire team. There are concerns about AI will replace my job. And so one way to get everybody onto the same page is team upskilling opportunities so that you're training the entire team. You're not just training, let's say, the executives. You're training the administrative staff and every level of the staff as well. So one of the most important things is if there's a person who can own that process and then roll it out to the rest of the team. Again, there's a self-assessment question there. Who is that person for that specific initiative, whether that's AI or any other initiative? Who is that person that's going to be the galvanizer for the organization?
Then, as you deal with that, does that person have authority to make decisions? You've seen the proliferation of tools out there. One of the governance issues is who decides what gets purchased. It's not an IT or a software decision. It's not a budget decision. Whose decision is it in your organization? If it's your CEO and the CEO knows nothing about AI and automation, he or she is not prepared or in a position to make good decisions. Ashley mentioned who the champion is. Is the champion sharing what's learned? Are those people who are the pioneers going out there and learning and bringing back and teaching? That is part of governance. Is that part of your culture to make sure that the people who are experimenting and doing things are teaching those, so that if that person leaves, you have other people who know, one, we use this tool, and secondly, how to use it and how to apply it to different things. So governance is not just about the ultimate guardrail. Is this private or public data? And what do I put in it? Can I be sure my data is secure? Those are governance questions as well. But the decision making, the logging of different tools. How many times do we pay for Chat GPT and Claude every month? Are we paying for 2 copies for every individual in the organization? So if we have 6 people, we have 12 different setups for both AI or Claude and Chat GPT. These are decisions that need to be decided as you move through this process. It's not something you leave at the end. And how do you document all this? So again, there's a self-assessment question that helps you think through what we are doing or what you are doing or not doing with governance that needs to be rethought.
And another point to add to that self-assessment, you want to go back a slide for a second?
Yep.
This is something that people don't necessarily have any idea how to address. So to add to that self-assessment, again, you can have Claude build that out for you. Okay, I don't have an AI policy. Here's what I'm concerned about. Here's our information. What do I need to take into consideration? So you can ask Claude, feed it your context again, and say, what are the things that we need to take into consideration regarding an AI policy? Make sure you ask me all the clarifying questions until you are 95% sure on our goals and objectives, and then have it give you the output so it can help you build that strategy.
Thank you. We talked earlier about an assessment is not a report. That is mostly true, but there are some report elements to it. Part of that reporting, the way we do it, is to put together a power grid, or what we call an AI opportunity assessment. You'll recognize the list on the left. Those are the same steps and stages we had talked about when we were going through the BR&E process. So this is business retention, basically. And this is how we mapped out the assets or the opportunities and the threats related to implementing that. So clearly things like data analysis, number 4, are up in the upper right hand corner. That's a really high value thing because that replaces a huge number of man hours. Kevin, who helped us do our North American data study when we had Synchronous, and we'd have clients across the globe sending us, our country, sending us information about their data or sending us their data. We would analyze, put all that data together. We would have thousands of interviews, and we would do an analysis of it. Anybody care to guess how long it takes to take, let's say, 1,000 open-ended questions that have touched on multiple points, to break that down and to categorize it? Kevin spent months doing our North American data study. It was a huge lift. We can do it in minutes now because of what ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, OpenAI, and others can do. So these are great tools. So what we're doing here is we're looking at, again, what we talked about as the workflow. We're taking the pieces of the workflow, we're taking the automation or the AI component of it and saying, okay, how does that fit our cost reward structure? Where are the best opportunities? Are there some that are linked? Data analysis, number 4, you can't get to your 8 and your 7, which are your board report and your annual report, without completing that. So clearly some of these are linked and you do them in a chain. And other times, like item number 1 out here, is an outlier. It's an outlier because during this conversation with the client, they were talking about, we have a lot of foreign country companies in our market. Wouldn't it be nice if we had some cultural introduction to that market as part of our business retention preparation? The answer is absolutely. It has a fairly high value potential to it, but it's also costly. And currently, our chats or our LLMs have huge biases, and many of those are cultural. So we can't guarantee that what we put down or what comes out as a result of asking AI to do a cultural analysis is going to be even halfway accurate. That, it makes this one too risky and too expensive to make it part of the process. So that's how things get eliminated, because they're either an outlier or, there's not enough return. Number 6, team briefing. I could do that in the afternoon, just touching a couple of people. Then that's not important. Don't put it on the list. Save that time and money. So this is how the assessment turns the process into an outcome that an executive can say, yeah, that makes sense. I can see now how if we do number 4 first, we're going to get a ripple effect that's going to be very strong and positive. So, the purpose of the assessment is to help understand and make this clear. So, how do we make those judgments? Obviously, these are all judgments. There is no hard number to say number 4 is in that position. That's unfortunately not possible yet. So we make the decision based on things like A, time saved, value created for the client, hires avoided, and new business captured. Those are the 3 primary, quote, returns on investment that you would get out of AI and automation. So the first one on the right, the 40,200, is more of a service organization, and you're getting some benefit for value created for the client, but mostly all that you can count is the number of hours saved. So that's really a payroll calculation. If I get $100 an hour is my cost to the organization, then if I save 40 hours, I've saved, a certain amount, a specific amount of time, I've saved a certain amount of money. That's the way that calculation works. For that kind of an organization, payback is much longer. So maybe you look at it at 3 years, because this raises an important point. When you buy these tools, they frequently are built to suit, and then once you have it, it just continues to run. Now there's maintenance and there's some support that may be needed to keep it running, so that'll add to a cost, but it's nowhere near the original build cost. Then you have the example below, which is 487, and that's a typo. It should be 437,600, but you're getting now a financial kick from A plus C plus D. So they were able to avoid hiring a new dispatcher for this fleet operation. They were able to access new business because now routes are more efficient. We can get more stops in during the day. That gives us the opportunity to chew away at a backlog of business that we want to capture. Obviously, there's also time saved for the person who's doing the routing, the route planning, and then the management of that process. So in this case, payback is less than 2 months, and it's a huge payback for this particular client. So each one will be different, but part of what you look at is based on what we learned here, what is the likely benefit of doing that? If we do A, B, and C, then we can begin to calculate what your benefit is going to be. So we just wanted to give you a frame of reference because this is what is usually a missing piece.
So organizations that we are seeing success with have three habits. The first is, like we're talking about with the assessment, they diagnose before they prescribe. So you would never go in for a surgery without having all of the scans and tests and all of the things run. This is the same route that you want to take, the same look you want to take with AI. You need to look at the organization as a whole before you are deciding, okay, maybe I start with this tool and it's just an experiment. And then that experiment ends up costing you tens of thousands of dollars and maybe wasn't what you needed. You fix the boring things first. If there's any slide that's worth taking a screenshot of, this is probably it, because it will help to give you the steps forward. So like I was saying with the client that we were working with, we had to put the entire build on hold because she knew her data was a mess. She created a workaround, as many organizations do, because there was a kink in the, what the tools did. So she created a workaround, which caused a big data problem. And she knew that. And she didn't realize how big the data problem was until we started digging into it. So we had to put everything on hold and clean up the data first, and then you can proceed. So you have to fix the boring things first. Look at your workflows. Look at, is there a workflow where we have created our own workaround because there was an issue with the tool capabilities or your systems? What is the workaround that was created? Because that kink needs to be ironed out first. Or is there a person who is in charge of this singular process? And if that person leaves, we don't know what we're going to do. Those are the things that are the big problems. Every organization knows that we have them. They are there. They are somewhere. But you've just been doing them for so long. So look at the boring things first, clean up the data, the workflows, the processes, and then you can start to look at AI.
So bringing this back to where we started, business retention plan, we think that AI is an opportunity for you. Not only that, we think it's a responsibility. Because if you think about, again, where the only field you can play in is adoption and fast adoption. If you focus on it that way, then that means if you're not adapting locally, your businesses aren't, then they are going to be overrun by the companies who do. And that company may be 3 counties away. They just haven't grown into your county yet. But as they begin to use these tools, that's going to leverage or create the opportunity for them to perhaps grow faster. We know the industries are changing, jobs are changing, what a job constitutes is changing, how a job is done is changing. The early adapters are going to outrun those who wait. If your community is made up of waiters, then you're going to struggle. It's going to be an issue locally. The technology change, you have to think about every 3 months being equivalent to what used to be 6 months of technology change. It is happening very, very fast. And that's clearly why paralysis is a common mode of operation, not only at the economic development level, but for business executives as well. So what does a response plan look like? In my opinion, it's a census of who your AI professionals are, people like us that can help you structure a program, build a program, think through what a program might be, and then perhaps deliver services. Survey your partners or survey the business community with your partners to find out what they're doing. Not only during your interview process do you want to do this, but you want to use other vehicles and you want to get to as many companies as you can. So use the Lions Club list, use the library list, use other partners to help reach out more broadly. put those interview questions in your survey instrument. Make sure you're looking at data that you can really analyze. So get that 1 to 10 scale on there so you can put people in the right positions. See what the other economic development organizations are doing in your area and identify partners who can help you move forward with the AI adoption. In New Holland, or in Holland, Michigan, a private sector company set itself up to do training on AI and make it available to anyone in the community. So high schoolers can go, business executives can go, retired school teachers can attend. It's open to anybody, but their focus is on the more broadly people know about it and become engaged with it in one way or another, the better the benefit for the community. So they're trying to stimulate that at a community level. You can do the same thing as a program level through your economic development organization. Advocate for team skill, upskilling teams, the assessment approach. We believe that's important. You don't have to pout for that. You don't have to push that, but, help people get involved, help companies figure out how to get and where to get involved in this process, and create a proactive program. This is fundable. Some of the service organizations in your communities, the banks and others, are going to be impacted by the success or failure of your local firms. Go to the auto dealers, go to the banks, go to the realtors and others and say, hey, they're not going to be able to pay as much for this house if they don't succeed in the future. So help me put the money on the table to make this program a reality. So use your chat, use your Claude to help you build out this program. And you can do it in a few days, in a few weeks, test it with a few people, make adjustments, come to grips with the fact that not only is there an opportunity to lead, but you have a responsibility to lead. Now, if somebody is already doing that in the community, you don't duplicate it. You find out how you can partner with them and add to what they're doing so that it has a bigger impact. So that's what we wanted to talk about today. We wanted to help you see BR&E as a door to, one, understand this issue, how it might affect the companies in your community, and secondly, how it creates a vehicle for you to create a program that results in faster adoption in your community. Nathan, we are ready for questions.
All right. Well, thank you very much. That was a lot of great information. We will send out a recording of this as well. Once we're done here, I will also send along a PDF of all of these slides, so we'll have those as well. A couple questions here. We have one about how small local businesses, a lot of which are mom and pop shops, can benefit from AI in the retail and service sectors. How can the AI increase their sales or foot traffic or margins, keeping in mind that the average age of the business owners in a lot of cases is 55 plus and they're busy running their businesses.
Ashley, you want to take that with your entrepreneur?
Yeah, of course. A couple of the biggest things especially for the mom and pop shops, there are sales processes that can be automated. Maybe it's a follow-up sequence for leads that they would otherwise forget or drop the ball. So that could be text or email or DM on an autopilot, on an automatic follow-up sequence. Foot traffic through better online presence. You can use AI tools to build you your marketing strategy, and you can build out a marketing expert. Here is the information on my company. Here are my goals, objectives. Here's where I'm struggling. Here's the skill sets that I don't have. I need you to build me a marketing strategy. So it could build the marketing strategy. Margins for a small business owner, time is margin. And 9 times out of 10, they are spending a significant amount of their time doing administrative work. So even something like the AI operating system that we are building, it can connect to their tools, their scheduling, their email, automatic follow-up, and it reduces the load on their shoulders. Hopefully that helps. Eric, do you have any others that you want to add to that?
Yeah, thank you. Another question.
I think that covered it well. Yeah.
Oh,
Go ahead, Nathan.
And
Yep.
another question here, and this may be one we can follow up with when we send that email after the fact. Do you have an example or a case study that demonstrates the practical application of your presentation?
The business retention is a case study that I went through at the very beginning. It was a client coming to us. Uh, Granted, we used to be in business retention with a software product. A client now who 4 years later has not obviously worked, Synchronist is no longer available. They came back to us and said, "What does business retention look like going forward? How can we apply new tools to this process?" So the whole first half of this was a case study. The outcome was the results of that case study. The grid that you saw with the placement of those dots, data analysis being high up and right, is an example of where the real value is. Have we done any other operations within economic development organizations? We haven't looked at any other departments that way. We have a pending audit with a group in Kansas. They're just trying to work around their schedule to find a time to do it.
I think one of the best examples that we can give is the AI operating system that we are talking about. I have never been an entrepreneur before. I have worked for many small businesses and worked through the growing and the pain points and how do we do the things? We don't have funding. We don't have the money for it. So I have built this AI operating system for us now that we are running our own organization and helping organizations navigate AI. I don't have a marketing skill set. I don't have, let's say I'm wearing 10 hats. I have a skill set in maybe 2 of them. So this AI operating system that I have built is the expert in all of the other things that we need to do for our organization. So I don't know if that is helpful, but it's managing our outreach. It is managing our strategy. Here's what you need to do and why. It is even personalizing our outreach. It will do deep research on, hey, here's the potential client. It will go out and do research on the person, the organization, the industry, all these things that I wouldn't know otherwise, and personalize it. So maybe that gives a little bit more of a specific example, Nathan, of, how the presentation is impacting us in the real world.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. I think we have time for 1 or 2 more here. First, should an EDO consider offering subsidized AI assessments for companies? Is there a benefit to that?
That's a possibility. That's a funding question. If you can raise the funds to do it, or if you can put together a team of AI experts in your community who serve in roles like ours that actually understand how to do an assessment and can do a build, then maybe you can work with them on discounts. Discounts just the same as you're finding a way to fund something. So you can put together special programs where you provide these. These are our quote, preferred organizations. You do business with them, you get a 15% discount or something. So those are possibilities. It's difficult in this era. AI is something I believe we can raise funds around, the importance of it to our community's economic future. And the role has to be that being a fast adapter. How do we become that fast adapter without getting companies more involved? And if that requires a discount, that's one way. There are other vehicles as well, through training in particular, or through showcasing success stories. And we're all good at those things because that's what we do in the rest of economic development. So this isn't outside our skill set. This is just finding an opportunity and creating a new program and then getting behind it and finding funding for it. And if you're the first one in the community doing it, then you have a much greater opportunity to get funding to go with it as well.
Okay. Great. I think that is our time. We're at an hour here, but I appreciate Eric and Ashley taking the time to join us. Like I say, we will send all this information out after the fact. And if you have questions, feel free to respond to that email. We can maybe follow up with them. Then we can maybe send out some contact information.
Yeah, we're happy to
as well.
respond after the fact if you have questions.
Okay.
Thank you, Nathan.
Thank you, Eric and Ashley. Thank you, everybody, for being here.
Our thanks to Golden Shuffle for sponsoring this. Thank you.